Welcome to another episode of Preparing for the Unexpected. I'm your host, Alex Fullick, and as always, we like to talk about things related to disaster recovery, business continuity, emergency management, COVID, resilience, anything that helps you, your organization, or your community plan for, respond to, and overcome adverse situations. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, please feel free. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Alex Fullick there, really easy to find, and I respond to everything I get. And I'm interested to hear my guest's take on my next announcement. I will be speaking at Continuity Insights, April 25th to 27th in Louisville, Kentucky. Are you following me there?
I will be there, yes.
I knew it. That's why I was interested in hearing it. I knew it was going to happen again. As you can tell by the voice, and well, we're on YouTube and video. It's that time again for This Week in Business Continuity with James Green. James, welcome back.
Thank you for having me back, Alex. We made it to the end of another year, 2021. I think this is our last broadcast of the year for our session. So this is it. What a year.
And oh yeah, what a year. To think we thought we'd be in a different spot when we first started, but
correct. I thought I was going to see you 5, maybe 6 times this year. It's been 0.
It's 0.
Second year in a row, 0.
And the way things are going, who knows? But I do have a bit of good news. James and I have talked, and we will be extending This Week in Business Continuity into the next year. So 2022 hopefully shapes up to be better. And of course, we'll be talking about whatever we feel like it.
Exactly.
Speaking of which, let's get started on talking about things. You just mentioned we thought we would meet at some conferences, and recently there was the Continuity Resilience Today, or the Disaster Emergency Management Conference, CRT DEMCON. That was virtual, and you were a key speaker, and I was speaking and manning the live media desk, I think we called it. So yes. How was your experience with the CRT DEMCON?
Yeah, another virtual conference. I don't know how many that makes for me this year. I think it's 10 or 11. Great conference. I want to leave my house. I want to meet some people. I want to see some people. I am ready. It was a really good conference. Had a lot of good feedback from our session. Saw some very interesting sessions. But yeah, I'm out of vendor swag. I don't have notepads to write on. I want a crappy hotel meeting at lunch, something. Let's get going.
Yeah, I was really hoping for an in-person one because they were only where they would have been live an hour down the highway from me. So yeah. I was really looking forward to it, but unfortunately circumstances didn't go that way. Went virtual. I still enjoyed it. I did like the fact that emergency management and business resiliency and continuity were together again, because it was nice to hear some of the perspectives from emergency managers. I don't know about you, but I heard a couple of sessions, one in particular, and the lady's name escapes me right now, unfortunately, where she was talking about some of the challenges that emergency managers and emergency management are having. Well, wouldn't you know it, over half that list were the same things you and I say, and other guests on Preparing for the Unexpected have said. And I thought, wow, we work a lot closer than I guess we might have thought we did or didn't, when over half the topics were the same.
Yeah, I've long been a proponent of public-private partnerships. And to your point, it always amazes me that public sector emergency managers and private sector business continuity and resilience professionals don't spend more time together, because we work on a lot of the same issues. So that is one of my favorite things about the conference we were just at, is that it is both sides of the coin. And I wish more, conferences were inclusive in that respect. It seems to be there's emergency management conferences, there's business continuity risk conferences, and the only place they cross paths is once a year in Toronto, which is certainly a shame.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Something else I enjoyed, I was presenting as well and got great feedback. I'm glad I redesigned my presentation at the last minute, because I ended up with really good feedback afterwards. So I was glad I was pulling out my hair there for a while. But I also enjoyed the live media desk, where yourself came in and other people at the Resilience think tank came in, different people from different industries, continuity, resilience, and emergency management all came in and said hi and gave perspectives. I thought it was really better than last year, because this year I could actually see who I was talking to, for one. Last year I was just talking to my computer and hearing voices. This year you could see everybody. We had Cole from McGregor Communications on, that I talked to a lot of times. I switched off every so often with Grayson Cockett from the Epic podcast, who, if you're listening, Grayson, hopefully you're feeling better. Poor Grayson had an accident the Wednesday night and broke his leg, so he couldn't appear. Couldn't appear on the media desk on Thursday, though he did log in the morning from the hospital. As he's holding up his hand to wave, you can still see his hospital bracelet. So hopefully he's doing better now. I'm sure he is. But I really like that format, and I've already talked with the conference conveners that I'm more than willing to do it again next year. And so far, fingers crossed, we do, but in person next year, hopefully.
Exactly.
So. And one of the topics we talked about, and this is now jumping into what we want to talk about, for a little while, we were talking about after action reports. And one of the comments that were made is that what happens when after action reports have the wrong information, or you go in the wrong direction? And I thought that was rather interesting. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when you guys started talking about that, it blew my mind, because it is honestly something I've never thought about before. I have typically taken, once things get to the after action report, for me, it's kind of sacrosanct. I know up until that point, there's a lot of political maneuvering. It's he said, she said, it's your fault, not my fault. But I'd never thought about, before you guys brought this up, and that's why I wanted us to talk about it a little bit, what happens if there's information in the after action report that's, misleading, erroneous, fake, a lie, pick a word, but then it causes your organization to go in the wrong direction. And that's really terrifying to me, because I'd never thought about it. And we always say after action reports, those are the best things, one of the most important things you can do in our industry. And if it tells you to go left, then you should be going right. That kind of blew my mind that day. I spent a lot of time thinking about, how do you validate those reports, and what happens if down the road you realize they were incorrect? That's something that has never in my time in this industry crossed my mind until you and a few other people were chatting about it on the media desk.
Yeah, I wish we had been able to talk about it more, but I know we had other people come and join us, and we ended up changing the subject. But I would have loved to have dig deeper into that one, because a lot of the after action reports, or lessons learned, or whatever, different people, different organizations call it something different. But a lot of times I have sat in some of those sessions where it does become a finger pointing exercise, and it's people start justifying their role,
exactly,
or what they did, rather than what worked well, what didn't work well, what should we change, what should we not change that worked well, and to keep you on the right path. And it becomes sometimes it's demoralizing.
Yep.
So I can't imagine what it must be like if someone goes through that whole exercise, documents quote unquote lessons learned, and then goes off on the wrong direction. I'm not sure how that can happen, and why somebody in a room who's participating wouldn't put their hand up and say, hey, that's wrong, or like you said, lie, erroneous information, whatever word you want to use. Why somebody wouldn't point that out? Because if they have a good lessons learned program, or they do things with their lessons learned and their after action reports, then actions are created out of that. So yeah, now somebody's told a lie, and is that action, the actions that are associated with that after action report, suddenly are now focusing on the wrong things. Is that happening for someone to protect themselves, or to hide something? I hadn't really thought of it beyond some of my own experiences like yourself. I thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from your audience. If anyone watching or listening has been a part of or known about an after action review that wasn't honest or accurate, please reach out to us. You can, and we would love to talk about it in an upcoming episode. We can keep it anonymous, but this whole thing kind of fascinates me. It's like in the sci-fi movie where you find out the person's a robot and now your mind is blown. That's where I'm at right now. So
Yeah.
questioning everything.
Yeah, because sometimes the information you get, if it is wrong, it takes you in the wrong direction. That's going to have an impact maybe on the next program or project that's being implemented. And before you know it, you're no longer developing something or creating something or purchasing something that's fit for purpose. It's geared towards something else, maybe somebody else's interest. The old term empire building. Maybe it's to do with that. Oh, if I get that, this is a way of manipulating a process to get what I want.
Exactly.
And that's as far as we kind of got with it. But I would have really, like yourself, been interested in hearing more from people. So please feel free, send us an email, leave a comment on YouTube, whichever works best, or LinkedIn. We're both on LinkedIn, so feel free, reach out. I'd really be interested in hearing people's thoughts on that. Or maybe I can snag Grayson, because I'm going to reach out to Grayson in the new year and we're going to have a chat. And maybe it could get his thoughts, because I think he was the one who actually brought it up first. So, okay, well, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I would love to hear more about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, pick his brain on that one. So we have another. No, you know what? I'm going to make people listen for a while. I'm going to move the next topic over a little bit.
Oh, you're changing my notes around. I love it.
Just a little bit. Let's move to a next point, the Great Resignation.
Okay.
Metlife put out an interesting paper. I know I've got it here off to the side. Can you kind of tell us about it? I won't give anything away.
Yeah. So Metlife released a report in the last 2 weeks called The Importance of Individualism in a Changing World. And Alex, every time I pitch show stuff to you, I always have a report in there. And I have this weird love-hate relationship with reports where I seem to like the idea of the report. And then you're like, yeah, let's do that. And I start digging into it. And I'm like, what did I get myself into? I hate this. It's boring. It's irrelevant. But this one, for me, is one of my reports of the year. I was really excited. And actually, I'm going to be honest, read the whole thing. As you know, I normally get about halfway down. But you and I have talked about the Great Resignation a lot. And the reason I was excited about this study is it's putting some data around a lot of the concepts and the ideas that you and I have explored and shared this week. And I have a ream of statistics here, and I want to go through all of them, but I'll try not to. But there were just so many things that I found interesting. 32% of employees feel the relationship with their employer has weakened since COVID. And 49% of those employees whose relationship is weakened say their productivity has weakened. Like, we're quantifiably seeing burnout here. And I thought it was so interesting. Kudos to Metlife, not a sponsor of ours, but for grabbing this data and putting it, in a quantifiable sense. And I think these numbers, we'll get into some more of them after your thoughts. I think these numbers are going to get worse in the new year.
Well, I think so too. And I know you're going to mention a few more. What I've also noticed, I wish I had remembered to save the URL somewhere, and it escaped me, but it was actually about CEOs and senior management are experiencing the exact same things now, except they don't have, as the article kind of pointed out, they don't have anyone to kind of look at.
Yeah.
Or say that, my boss is making me work harder or whatever the case may be. They don't have anyone to look at because everybody's looking at them. So they've got a lot of CEOs now are starting to get burned out and leave their jobs because they're experiencing the exact same thing. They're trying to prevent from happening to their employees. And I'm a big proponent every time I talk about, burnout or things happening in an organization. I'm always quick to say this includes management and senior leadership. You're all susceptible to the exact same risks, feelings, whatever the case may be. And this article pointed that out. That and now they're starting to show it. It doesn't. And one CEO said, it doesn't matter how much they pay me, I'm still burnt out.
Yeah.
And I've had enough. So I thought that was interesting, and I have quickly gone over the report that you sent me here to have a look at, and continue on, because there really are some interesting numbers that crop up here.
Yeah. So one thing that I've been thinking about a lot, and this quantifies it, is, we all talk about the new normal, the next normal, temporary normal, but I think there's a permanent shift that has happened. So this report talked about over 60% of employees expect their company, not want their company, expect their company to make accommodations for personal circumstances. That is a huge number of employees who now say, you will take into account my life, I am a human, I am a family member, I am a person. And that's no longer, we've seen studies before where employees hoped that companies would do that, or it would be a nice to have. Now it's a need to have. And those roughly the same percentage of the people said if those values aren't accommodated, they will look for a new job. And I think these companies, to your point, management is looking around, and I don't think most companies are going to know how to react to this very different dynamic where employees are saying, hey, I need work-life balance. Actually, I need time off. I need this, that, and the other, especially I think this is really acute in the United States, where, the amount of people who take personal time or holiday or leave is the lowest of any industrialized nation. I think, companies are going to be upended and not understand why they're bleeding out employees after the holidays.
Well, I know I've used this on the show before, that a lot of the talk that organizations, leadership, the marketing speak, it's all lip service.
Yes.
And those that not for everybody, I shouldn't put everybody in the same group here, but those that just used it as lip service to get talent or make a sale or something like that are now finding out that that's not working any longer. You're put up or shut up type thing. And I think a lot of people, organizations, leadership don't know how to put up.
Yeah, I think it's a nice bookend. You and I spoke earlier in the year about the service industry. And for the longest time, the mantra was, well, if you don't like it, work somewhere else. And people have. But now I think you're seeing it in those white collar job, those back office type jobs. You're seeing people quit, especially in the United States, in rates that have never happened before in the history of this country. And a lot of people are going out on their own or taking some time off, living on savings. There's this shift coming that people expect to be treated. I think over the last 20 years or so, maybe longer, the needle's moved too far in the employer's favor, and people are pushing back. It feels very seismic to me, where this is something that's fundamentally going to change a lot of how we do business.
I think it's like an employee revolution. I've seen that word crop up a couple of times, where the employee is now in the driver's seat.
Yes.
Not the CEO or the head of HR or whatever. The organization now has to start following the employee, not the other way around, because a lot of people, to your point, they were an employee, a person before they walked into the office door. They're still an employee, a person while they're in that office, and they are still a person when they leave that door and leave the office. They're a person first, employee second. And I think for a long time, it was, when you're in my confines of my office, you're an employee. No, they're a person first.
Exactly.
Employee second, and that is now changing. Like, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just looking up. It was something that happened yesterday, and the name escaped me, so I wanted to get it right. But probably a lot of people have heard the story last night that Better.com laid off 900 people yesterday. And it wasn't the fact that they laid off 900 people, it's that they called all 900 into a Zoom call. And the CEO, whose name I won't even speak, said, you're all fired. What I thought was interesting was what happened today. 3 executives quit the company in protest, not entry level, not middle management, line management, executives, higher ups, even higher ups, to your point, are saying, hey, enough of this. This was not acceptable and we're leaving. And it's really surprising to see not only employee exodus, but I think where the shift is coming is the executive exodus of Better.com or other companies. I haven't seen or recalled anything like this where you're seeing executives stand up and say, this isn't right from an ethical standpoint, and we're leaving.
Yeah, I saw that announcement. I didn't see today's response from the executives leaving, but I did see that one. And I have to admit, when I first read it, I went, is this something from The Onion?
Exactly.
Or the Beaverton, or some of the other humorous sites, shall I say? It just doesn't seem real. And it was, because I know the executive turned around and said, if you're on this call, it means you're not doing a good job. And I don't want you here. You've messed up enough times. That's something I would have expected in the 1940s and 50s, when executives sat behind their mahogany desks, and it was all men with cigars, like the stereotype you see in the old movies, right? But I never thought I would read, or see something like that in 2021.
Exactly. I think these companies are losing they're losing their grasp of, here's how you need to interact with your employees. And the other seismic shift that I saw in this report that jumped out, over 70% of employees now feel employers have a social responsibility to their employees. So it's not just a contract of hours and wages and time off, but a social component. I don't think most companies are ready for that. Like you said, they want to have a slogan on the wall that says, people are our most important asset, and they want to have a pizza lunch, and they want to do a potluck once a year. And that's not cutting it anymore.
No, I had that chat with someone the other day of some of those kind of initiatives that don't help morale, because pizza lunch, well, not everybody eats pizza or likes pizza. 2, there's vegetarians or vegans, or other health and diet requirements. So pizza lunch means absolutely nothing for a percentage of your workforce. Or when you have your potlucks and things like that, well, people are busy. They don't have time to create. It's challenging to have dinner with their own families, and that you want to make them create dinner or lunch or breakfast or whatever it may be for an entire department. That's not going to happen. Or to boost morale, we're all going to go to the local pub after the office closes or something. Well, that never worked, and I never agreed with it. I never liked that, because I was traveling 2 hours to get home. So why am I going to stay till the end of the workday? If I'm leaving at 3:30, your thing's not starting till 5. I'm expected to stay there till 6 or 7. Now I'm not getting home till maybe the earliest 9:30. There's no way. I didn't like participating, and I got called on it a few times, and I had to explain it, saying, no, this doesn't work for me. And I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah, I think this study is showing that employees are demanding commitment, but sustained commitment. That potluck once a year, that going to the pub once a month, it doesn't work. And if you think about it in your personal life, tomorrow's my wedding anniversary.
Oh, happy anniversary.
Thank you. But here's the thing. If I were to pay attention to my wife tomorrow and be, the husband that I should be tomorrow, and then neglect her for the next 364 days, we're not celebrating my anniversary next year. But a lot of employers have that mentality of, oh, well, we had the company Christmas party. You got a $20 Amazon gift card, so I can neglect you for the next 364 days. You can't right now. Employees have realized, people have realized, like you said, it's not a revolution, but there's something happening, and people now have mobility to go elsewhere, and they're going to. And these companies who do a Christmas party, a holiday party, a gift exchange now, and neglect their employees for the next 6 months are going to wonder why they're shutting down, I think, in the next summer. I think it's that strong.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with what is it, Bettercom?
Yeah.
Be interesting to see what happens with them over the next little while, and if that executive stays in their position.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a chance they won't be there, because if I had my way, that's the person I would have got rid of.
Correct.
Because if they were behaving that way, what were they behaving like in the office?
Worse. They were worse. Yeah.
Yeah, just terrible. On that note, we've come to the end of our first segment. It's This Week in Business Continuity with James Green, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show, This Week in Business Continuity with James Green. James, we had an interesting chat there at the end of the first segment, some of the frustrations. But one of the other points that you experienced recently when you were part of a recent webinar, there's a lot of pent-up frustration with, if I understand it correctly, business continuity professionals and resilience professionals, right? What happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So I did a webinar last week with some friends of mine, Marcus Vaughn, who you may know, Rena Singh, who I know you know. Mm-hmm. We Illuminar, a company, hosted it, and it was called the Big Resilience Reset. And the goal was, we were trying to ask some of the really big, meaty, scary questions in our profession. And I have some of them listed here. So, is business continuity dead? How do you know if your program is on track? We spoke about the Great Resignation, creating engagement. Really, we try not to do softball stuff, really hard hitting stuff. But what I commented to you earlier in the week was the chat was melting down, and we could not keep up with the discussion that the attendees were having. You had 4 people trying to moderate the chat, and we couldn't keep up. So there were some very strong opinions about the state of our industry, and it just got me thinking. So I wanted to ask you, I really feel like a lot of people in our industry remain quiet, remain silent, or maybe feel like they don't have a voice. And I was wondering why is that? Why aren't there more people speaking up about what they see or what they think should be done?
I really wanted to make that webinar, by the way, but I had to be on a call, unfortunately. Part, I think, of it is for years and years, business continuity was always a back burner issue. If even an issue, it was more of a back burner afterthought, and struggled with buy-in and getting support and enough resources to do what we needed to do. So I think for many people, because I did feel it for a little while myself, I'll admit, that I didn't want to speak up, because if I speak up, I'm going to bring attention to myself. And at this time, with people in any industry, not just business continuity, that have lost their jobs or uncertain about their future, if I speak up, I'm going to get the wrong attention I need, and maybe lose my role. So I'm not going to speak up. Maybe send a message through chat features on webinars. I could do that, but I'm not going to speak up in my organization or get my name out there where someone might recognize me. So I think that might be one reason. Another, I think too, is, and I don't mean to knock anybody, I'm not pointing fingers at any particular group or any vendor or sponsor or anything like that, but we're being dictated to through COVID. A lot of the information is coming from vendors with different points of view.
Yep.
And this is the way your organization should be. This is what you should be thinking. This is what people are feeling. And they're publishing all this information, but it's only based on their own clientele.
Correct. Or their software.
Yeah, or their
consulting.
Software. It's not actually, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, because it's obviously relevant to somebody, but when you're talking the entire industry, well, you're only talking about a tiny little piece of industry, but the big hubbub and the balloons and the cannons roar when a report comes out, it starts sending the wrong messages, and then that's creating mixed messages. So I think some people don't speak up because they don't even know what the message is, what's going on. That's my initial take on it. Now, you experienced this, you're going to know, through the webinar exactly what people were saying, and I'd be interested to hear what they were saying.
I think it's all the more reason that we need people to speak up. We have a lot of great, talented people in our profession, but to your point, if it's just, and I'm a member of every one of these organizations I'm about to name. So if it's just the BCI and the DRI and the ACP and the vendors, which I've worked for multiple of them, if those are the only 4 voices in the room, that's a problem. I'm not saying those 4 organizations shouldn't have a voice. They certainly should. But the practitioner, the risk professional, needs to have a voice. People need to be encouraged to share their thoughts on blogs, on speaking engagements, in webinars, because there was a lot of, I get every day like, hey, can you talk about this? Can you talk about that? Don't use my name. It's interesting that people are afraid, because for the most part, Alex, the things they want to bring to light are not inflammatory, are not offensive. They're not even controversial. They may be provocative, but I think we owe it to ourselves to challenge ourselves and look at things from different directions. But I think, some of the chat I'll keep with the attendees who were there, but there was a lot of pent up frustration. And I think it tied back to what we talked about in the first segment with the Metlife. People are tired with how business continuity or risk is viewed, how they're treated, and they're looking. I think you're going to see a lot of people surprisingly move in our profession to different companies. And we had some very, hard conversations where people got the angriest with me is when I said, part of the problem is you. And I think that'll lead to something we'll talk about in our next, our next segment. But we do bring some of this on ourselves. To your point, business continuity professionals, risk professionals know most of what's going on in an organization. Why don't more of us speak up? Why are we not viewed as valued by management? Sometimes that's the organization, but I think sometimes it's on us to do more.
Is that maybe a chicken and egg type situation? We don't feel valued, so we don't speak up. And I think
in a lot of cases,
we don't get asked by executives or management our opinion because we don't speak up.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. We've all been there. I've been in organizations where I've been valued. I've been in organizations where I was not valued. So I speak from personal experience on that.
Me too. I've been on some programs and projects and where you can't keep up with the questions that come your way, that people want your opinion and want you to review something. And I've been in others where you just feel, I'm less than a cog in a wheel. I'm not even the grease on the wheel. I'm the rusty bolt, that's holding the wheel up, and that's maybe the as best as it gets.
Yeah.
But were there any common themes that were coming up out of with the frustration? not getting, as an example, not getting the attention from their vice president or CEO or anything? Common things that really stood out?
Yeah, one that wasn't surprising, but that we heard a lot was the lack of management support. And again, in our profession, if you've been in our profession more than 6 months, that lack of management support is a big part of what we do. I think the last 2 years has really heightened that frustration. The other thing, pre-COVID times, we talk about the party of one, the team of one, being the risk professional of one. And prior to 2020, that was kind of a badge of honor. And I've worn that badge again myself. And now people are seeing that's a negative. If you don't have budget, if you don't have headcount, that's an indication of value. And it's very career limiting too for you, because how can Alex get promoted if he doesn't have a succession plan? And, the other thing that we've been chewing on a lot through the Resilience think tank is, with all of these teams of one, where are those junior analyst jobs? How are people getting into our profession? Where are those jobs you need a degree or 1 to 2 years of any experience? They're not out there. And that's a problem for our profession. I spent some time yesterday just went into LinkedIn jobs, business continuity manager, check, looking through almost all of them, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, 12 years. How are people getting in now? Like, we're gatekeeping ourselves by promoting that team of one.
Yeah, we're kind of hindering but is that really us, or is that just a misunderstanding from corporate leadership who have really no idea what the role does, because they're the one posting it, and I'm a shop of one. I'm not posting that role. Somebody else is. And is it a disconnect for their, what they're posting? They don't really have a true understanding of what my role is, what that role really should entail.
I think it's both. I think it's, management not understanding. And then I think it's us historically being quiet. But I'm starting to see people who are interviewing for BCM jobs, and when they find out it's a team of one with no budget, they're passing on the job. That will change that employer's behavior. If enough people don't take a job, employers will hey, we're doing something wrong here. You often see it a lot of times right now where a company with money posts a position and the salary is too low. And they're not attracting the quality candidates that they want. And we're seeing this right now. They raise the band for that salary. I hope to see some of those similar concepts with teams of one, on-site teams, team of one with no budget, where if enough quality applicants say no, HR and talent acquisition and management at good companies will say, hey, we need to change something here.
Yeah.
Now at bad or in different companies, they'll just lower their expectations, right? Honestly, but those good companies will say, hey, we want a quality person here.
They'll lower.
Why are we not getting quality applicants?
Yeah, they'll lower those expectations in the job posting,
Correct.
But then raise them again when the person comes in, which will only frustrate that person, and they could end up just leaving, saying this isn't what I signed up for.
Exactly.
I've seen that happen. I've read some job postings where it sounded great, okay, yeah, it frustrates me when you must have I'm not knocking anyone's certification, but ABCP certification, or one of the initial certain levels of certification, shall I say. But you need to have 4 or 5 years experience. I'm going, well, because that shouldn't align, because I don't want to see somebody with 5 years and they're still in ABCP. I want to see them working their career going up, themselves. And then I saw postings that had, all sounded great, and then had one line, must know, and they named this bizarre software I'd never heard of. I'm going,
yeah,
what is that? I had to look it up online, and going, that's got to do with coding language or something, a developer would know. So what is this role you're really looking for then? If that's a key deliverable for a business continuity role, I don't think that person's going to be doing business continuity. I think you want them to do something else.
Exactly. Yeah, I think companies are going to have to be more flexible. It's interesting that you talked about the certification, because I was actually working with an organization this morning, and they are having trouble finding a candidate for a job. And one of their requirements was you have to have your CBCP or your CBCI, from the BCI or DRI. And I said, okay, let's talk about, I have both. I'm a fan of certification, but let's talk about why that's a pass fail bright line for you. And, in talking to the organization, they said, well, we value education. We value professional education. If you look at the job postings for our other business divisions and units, they all require certifications. And, I think just kind of walking them through that certifications are, I think, valuable and important. Again, I wouldn't carry them if I didn't think so, but should they be a pass fail for applicants? Should that be the bright line that you're really looking for? So what I help them come to is now the job posting starting tomorrow is going to say you must have those certifications or be willing to obtain them within 12 months of gaining employment. That's going to open their applicant pool wider.
Yeah, most definitely. And that's got to be frustrating for new people, right? That are trying to get into the industry.
And I'm sensitive to it because I'm one of those people. When I started in this profession, my budget was 38 cents and a roll of duct tape. It was an 80 to 100 hour a week job. And when I looked to change, the very first thing the potential hiring manager asked me at the next company, you don't have any certifications. And I said, that is absolutely correct. My company will not pay for those. And I do not have the time for those, but I'm willing to get, any certification you want if you think that trumps my experience of being on the ground managing disasters.
Yeah.
So I've been there.
It's interesting. I really wish I could have heard that discussion, because obviously there's a lot of voices out there, but afraid to really speak up or be noticed. And if anyone does have experiences or comments, whatever it may be, please feel free. Again, send us a note, send us emails, LinkedIn, comments. Most people I notice on YouTube that leave comments don't have their real name there anyway. So, it'd still be kind of anonymous to a degree. So please feel free, let us know your experiences, your challenges that you're facing right now. So let's go with our last topic. So hopefully Luke Bird has made it this far and listening. Luke, once again, has given us a topic to consider. And it had to do with let me read actually the title of his article. Is business continuity really becoming more strategic? And he had this published, I think it was with BCI. On November 17th this year. So he wanted us to kind of talk about that. Is business continuity, should it become more strategic? What are your thoughts?
I have a lot of thoughts on this one. Thank you, Luke, for writing this article. Again, being a voice, sharing your opinion is important. Thank you for asking us to riff on it. I think it needs to be more strategic. I think the last 2 years have shown us what happens if we're not strategic. My concern is if we're only tactical, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be tactical at all, but if we're only tactical, we're going to become obsolete. And then the other thing I think, riffing on some of the things you and I have spoken about just in this hour, is it the employer? Is it the employee? Where's the fault? Where's the responsibility? We need to do a better job of taking the initiative in our profession. And I think in general, most people don't have a boss that comes up to them and says, okay, Alex, we're going to have you stop doing that check the box stuff. Here's all this cool strategic work you're now doing. Go. That's not how it works. It
Yeah.
works the other way around. I found in my career where I go to my boss and say, hey, I'm doing all this tactical check the box stuff. I'll keep doing that. What if in addition, I do this thing that helps you solve a problem that brings value to the organization? And the answer to that is usually yes. Like, oh, you want to do more work for free at this point without a title change, without a promotion, without resources? Of course, James, go knock yourself out. But that's how you start. That's how I started getting off of the check the box stuff. A lot of people just waiting for their boss to recognize that you're valuable. Your boss has their own things to do. You have to be assertive. You need to take that initiative. And I think you also want to do that because, like we said, there's some organizations where they will clearly tell you, we do not want you to do that. We want you to check the box, and that's it. And you need to figure out for yourself if that's what you want to be doing right now. If that's okay with you, awesome. But if it's not, I'd rather know right off the bat from my employer that like pat me on the head and say risk assessments, BIAs, plans, that's what I pay you to do.
Yeah. And that I'm glad you said it, because I wrote a few notes about this as well. And tick box was one of them for, the tactics, BIA done every year, check. Risk assessment looked at, check. It just becomes and I'm not making fun of anybody, but like an audit type of thing where you just get the box ticked and that's it, on to the next thing. Okay, what's the next tick box we have to look at? And you just get stuck in this cycle that doesn't grow, doesn't incorporate anything new. You just get stuck in, like a mouse on a wheel. You're just going around in circles and that's it, around and around doing the same thing. But you have to be able to get off that wheel and think differently. But every so often, as you said, you got to get back on that wheel to keep some of that stuff going so it doesn't become stale. But you've got to be able to move in a different direction as well. If you want your program to go somewhere and be bigger, well, then you've got to think strategically, how am I going to get there? What do I need to do? Am I going to get it with just the same tick boxes? No, I got to step out, and maybe it's step out of your comfort zone too, and start thinking a little differently. Well, I've always been told not to talk to XYZ department. They're out of scope for everything. They're their own world. But knowing, if you're a strategic thinker, knowing that there's a huge dependency here, what they do is going to impact my stuff, what we do impacts their stuff, then I can't be afraid to open up that can of worms. We've used that expression a few times here. We can't be afraid to think like that, open up that can of worms. And if the decision is made, yeah, we know about that, too bad, nothing's changing. Well, then to your point, do I want to stay here then? Is this where I want to go? Because you're setting me up for failure by not allowing me to move forward, right? And if you want to go somewhere, you create yourself an action plan. Here's the plan that I have to do that. And if you do have a boss that still wants you to do the tick box, here's my action plan, but here's where the tick boxes come in. And it's not so much as a tick box anymore. It's more strategic thinking. Hey, this information helps with this. So you start thinking of it a little differently and presenting it in a different way, rather than, we get our report from audit every year and we got all that done. No, it's like, oh no, we've identified key areas where we've got gaps, and because tick box exercises, people are going to do the bare minimum just to get the tick box done, and get the happy, green check mark on somebody's report or whatever the case may be. So I think we need to have those new skills and different mindsets to move forward. But I think and for some of us, and started off with me, I started off in the tactical area as well.
Of course. Yeah.
Because I didn't know any better. Not so much I didn't know better, but I didn't know enough to be able to think beyond, doing the BIA and then the next little piece. But when I'm doing the BIA, understanding all these different pieces that make it up, and what it can lead to and what it can help, it takes time to learn that. And I think in some of our training courses that are out there, that's not taught. We're moving on to module 4. It's how to document a BCP plan. but it's not, it doesn't think beyond that. We're not learning some of the strategic aspects beyond that. It's just, here's your template, here's what it should contain, here's who you should talk to, on to module 5, where, and that's it. So sometimes our own teaching and courses that are out there are limiting in what they're expressing and what we actually do need to know. Strategic thinking, I think, comes from real world experience.
Yes.
That's my interpretation. And, we also talk about resilience being flexible and adaptable. And I think we need that with our strategic thinking as well. The organization can change management, acquisitions, mergers, whatever the case may be. Yet we're still doing the same little exercise each quarter, or whatever the case may be. We need to think beyond that. When change occurs, what does that mean for this whole program? How can I make it adapt to now what the organization looks like? The organization's growing like this, but yet we're still doing the same little thing each month. So that's some of my thoughts.
And I think only being tactical kind of feeds the beast of the team of one. Because what I have seen, and again, I've spent some time as a software vendor. The business continuity manager says, I can't get to all of my BIAs and plans in a year. So I can add headcount, I can bring in a consultant, I can bring in software. Those are all good suggestions, but they shouldn't be the end game. Mm-hmm. My goal is, if you're going to bring in a third party, whether it's software or consultant, that should automate more of the tactical work. So then that person has time to focus on the strategic work. But what often happens, I find, is that person becomes the super admin SME of the data and the software. And now I'm James, the BC software guy. That's still tactical, just in a different level. You want to use those third parties to give up that work to focus on the strategic.
Yeah, I think so. I'm going to be, I'm waiting to hear back from Luke. If you're listening, still waiting to hear back from him on getting a date for next year, because we're going to dive into this a little bit deeper. And so I'm looking forward to that chat and see what he has to say. Well, I think we've covered everything in our agenda here, except last month we didn't get to go through, because we were so over time, we didn't get to go through our, what we're reading type thing or doing right now. So do you have anything you're reading, anything you want to convey?
I don't have anything that I'm reading, but I just want to say happy holidays to everyone. It's been, I got my little Santa hat here. It's been an amazing year. I've had a blast working with you, Alex, talking about everything and anything. So I'm glad we can continue to do this next year. I'm appreciative and thankful of you, and I'm appreciative and thankful of our audience for listening to us, encouraging us, and putting up with us when we egregiously run over time.
Yeah, that happens every so often, doesn't it?
Just every once in a while.
Well, I am reading. I know I've mentioned the last couple of episodes, except for the last one. A bunch of books I was reading. They're all done. There was about a dozen of them. They're all finished. You mentioned this word earlier on, so I'm reading a book on it. It's actually called Burnout Epidemic by Jennifer Moss. I've only just started, but wow, burnout's a lot more than we think it is.
Yes,
it's not just working a long day. I'm looking forward to this, and I might actually reach out to Jennifer and see if I can get her to come on the show and talk about it.
Excellent. I look forward to that one.
Yeah, it's a really interesting book. Quite enjoy it. And back at you, James, I've enjoyed this last year. It's nice to kind of just be casual, during these chats I know we have some bullet points every so often, with your bullet points with a link to something, of course. But I do enjoy the talks because they're much more casual, down to earth, and we kind of say really what we're feeling and experiencing and things like that. So I really enjoy it. It's been a fantastic year talking to you. And I'm looking forward to, well, considering where we are right now, what the new year is going to bring, and what new topics and things that are going to be happening. And maybe one of us will have an update on what happened with that CEO from Better.com.
Exactly.
But it's been a great year. Thank you very much for putting up with me, and going through all of this. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, well, happy holidays, and I will see you virtually, digitally in the new year, and maybe in person. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Fingers crossed for Louisville, Kentucky in April.
That's right.
But happy holidays to you and your family as well, and friends, and happy anniversary again for tomorrow.
Thank you.
You better be good tomorrow. Because I'm going to ask you.
Absolutely.
But thanks very much. Have a great holiday season. As James mentioned, this is our last one for 2021. We'll be back in January. So to everybody else who's watching and listening, have a great holiday, and we'll see you in the new year. Stay prepared, everybody. If you liked that video, thumbs up. If you didn't like that video, thumbs down. But leave a message and let me know what your thoughts are. If you'd like to be a guest on the show to talk about something related to business continuity, disaster management, COVID, personal well-being, anything that's relatable to those subjects, you can reach me through my LinkedIn profile, which is in the video description. And of course, don't forget to subscribe. In the meantime, stay prepared, everybody.